I would like to invite Mr. Nima Matavian to come and do the introduction. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out in this crazy rain. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Mrs. Cease Bronner. She is Executive Director and Chief Referral Officer of BNI for Success. BNI is Greater Los Angeles leading business networking organization. Not new to marketing, word of mouth, social media, or otherwise, she has produced and participated in high-profile webcast events such as the Grammys, the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, former President Jimmy Carter at the UN Summit in Turkey, and interviews with Nelson Mandela, the late science fiction writer Douglas Adams, A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Metallica. But I assure you, not all at once. She knows that now, more than ever, business people need to network to stay in business. BNI provides a positive, supportive, and structured environment to exchange quality business referrals, and is here to share with you her networking success steps. Thank you, Cease.
Who's checking in, right? Here's what I want you to do today for all of us. If you would please post anything with hashtag West LA or WLA Chamber Cease, and that's spelled CYS, because you want to remember my name, because that's the only way I'm going to be famous. So, you know, there's a bridge between the boss and a leader, isn't there? You know, leaders lead is the catchphrase. Well, what does that really mean? Quite some time ago, I had a member in our BNI region who has since elevated and has formed his own business. He's an amazing man, Brendan Smith. And during our NAP programs, Networking Accountability Partners, he was talking about his first job. Do you remember your first job?
Beach pizza.
What was that?
Beach pizza.
Beach pizza. Wow. Okay, so can you spin the pizza and all that?
No.
No. Okay. So he worked for a supermarket chain, Albertsons at that time. And, you know, he was talking about the supervisor at that chain. And he never really referred to him as a store manager. He always referred to him as a supervisor. And he would talk about this guy, and this guy would come into the store. He would talk to the people who were working there. He would show them how to power merchandise, how to effectively do end cap displays and whatnot. He'd spend a little time with each person. He'd walk up to the people at the register. He might take a bag and bag some groceries himself. He'd find out just a little bit more about them. And as is correct, eventually this gentleman was promoted up and became a district manager and so on and so forth, till he actually was really high profile in the chain. And I'm sure that you have somebody in your life that you can think of professionally who have this same skill, right? That's a leadership skill. And then Brendan's face, as he's telling this story, started to cloud over. And he spoke about this leader's replacement, Bob. And Bob was sitting in his office with the TV screens. There were about 4 of them. And at this time, when we were younger, last week, you know, having those screens was like a big deal. And Bob would come in, he would literally swoop out of his office. He didn't walk. I mean, he would just come down the stairs and he'd come up to somebody and he'd say, "You're not stacking those right, do it over." Right? And just now, we're kind of went quiet. And he'd walk up to the person at the register and he wouldn't ask them how their day was. He'd say, "You know what, you need to smile more." And he'd start on the back, or he'd say, "You need to go faster," and so on and so forth. And everybody had a feeling about Bob that wasn't quite as positive. Because Bob was a boss. Bob wasn't a leader, right? And as business leaders in this community, and all of you here in the chamber, there's a couple things you need to know as far as being better networkers and better leaders. Because you can be a solopreneur and still be a leader, because you have the community around you. So you know, we talked about B&I a little bit. I stood up, I told you who I was. This is not a B&I thing, but B&I is a network. The West LA Chamber is a network, right? So those are my examples. Those are your communities. Your network is the community of people, whether you're a solopreneur or you're in a large corporation that you surround yourself with, that you can be on a level where you rely on each other and you help each other resolve issues. So the question is right now, how many networks should you be a part of? I'll just take an answer from the room. 4. 4? 4 is a good number. I'm going to ask you why 4. I'm going to recap that real quick. It's not too complicated. They're all spread out, right? You're kind of keeping them even. 4 is very close to our number. Anybody else have another guess? You know it's not 4. Higher or lower? All right. So in B&I, we suggest that people who are active in their community are in 3 to 4 networks, right? 3 actual physical face-to-face networks where you can walk up to somebody and you can communicate with them and you can build that in-depth relationship. But the world has changed a little bit, so we ask you to belong to 4. That 4th one being online. LinkedIn, Facebook, anything virtually where you're meeting somebody. Are you feeling that that's a little overwhelming in your time? Maybe, maybe not. Right, so this is 90 minutes, 2 hours of your time every month, right? For your first Wednesday. Not too overbearing. So what you need to do is you need to make sure your networks are active. You need to make sure that your networks are in line with who you are and what you want to do. So I'm going to give you a success step of an additional network that has nothing to do with going to a chamber meeting or a hard contact networking organization like the TIB or that B&I one or something like that. I want you to look at the networks that you have in your own life. Are you, there's a lot of men in this room, so I'm already laughing at asking this, are you already a soccer mom? Right? Do you belong to a religious organization that you're really a part of? I know Pickwood Bowl has been gone for years, and it's the West Side Pavilion, right? But it's our local bowling league. Those are your networks. Networks don't mean you wear a tie. Doesn't mean you've got a badge. These are the people that you are relying on. One of your other success steps in your community, is to be a go-to guru. Go-to guru. You're the person, and soccer moms excel at this, by the way. You're the person that people go to help resolve issues, right? And that's what a referral really is. And that's what a leader does, right? It's an opportunity to help someone. So here's an assignment for you. Look, I brought notes. Yes. So I want your assignment today, because it begins with your hometown and your circle of services. I want you to create a list that you would appreciate receiving to help resolve these issues. To people who have pulled into your local port, so to speak. So I have a template that I would generally give around. If you want to contact me later, I'm happy to email it to you. And basically, it's a pretend letter, right? Let's make it to Bob, because he needs a little bit of help. Hi, Bob. Welcome to our town. It's so great to have you as part of the Westwood community. You haven't really been in Los Angeles very long. So here's a couple people that I would recommend, because they are going to help you in this capacity, right? And by this point, you know Bob well enough to know he's been in town 4 weeks or 4 years. What if it's somebody who's long-term? You have another template to help resolve these things and say, I don't know how well you know this area, but here's something here. In fact, Stanley, unless you prefer Stan, and I were talking, I have grown up in this neighborhood and been a couple blocks from it since 1961. This is on video, right? And I have been at this facility once before, and I had no idea until we were speaking just how large it is and the fact that it is not entirely locked out. That was an amazing thing to learn. You can bet that when I'm inviting people to the area and I'm talking to them and resolving some of theirs, and I'm being the go-to guru, I'm going to let them know little tidbits of information. It not only helps them, but it bumps up my credibility, right? these kind of things should we do? How many people should we be helping? We want to plan our year out, and our year's kind of half over. And I have this philosophy of pick 6 to win. We've all heard that relationships are a lot of work. We've also heard men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And in fact, there's a couple different books written about this. Networking and Sex, Not What You Think. Right? The men are from Mars, women are from Venus one. So how are we talking to these people? Are we understanding in our 6 that we're choosing that there are different personalities? Those are kind of important. So when you think about it and you focus on your referral needs, how can you expect others to do so for you? You want to be as specific with your referral partners, and that's a skill, right? Networking is a learned skill. I went to a chamber meeting once, not this chamber, so you can all relax, right? And there was a woman, and she was walking around the entire place, and she was what I would call the social schmoozer. I just tripped over my own Yiddish word there. And she knew everybody, and everybody was talking about her and introducing around, and I mentioned what it was I do, and she said, oh yeah, I network all the time. I'm such a cool networker. They know me, and everybody here knows me. How's your business going? Well, so, was she really networking, or was she working the room? Right? What's coming out of it? How specific was she? Where's her target market? You're not a quality networker or business person because you can leave the room with a stack of business cards this high. You're a quality networker or community participant because of who you know in that stack and the relationship you're building with them. Go deep in fewer relationships than going wide and shallow with many. So let's take 6. I'm going to make your life easy for you. I want you to pick 6 people in this room. Everybody's eyeing each other right now. Get their business cards before you leave if you don't have them already. And in the next 6 months, I want you to spend time with one of each of those people. And when I leave a meeting, there's something I never leave without asking. And we're all going to practice this. You're going to repeat it after me. How can I help you? How can I help you? In the car, on the way to your office, later. How can I help you? Till it becomes natural, something that you truly mean, and something you want to reach out to somebody else with and help elevate their business up and them personally. Because if it's not natural and it's not sincere, you're not helping anybody, right? How am I doing on time, guys? Boys, look at that. Right, what about Sadie Hawkins networking? What? I talked to you about the differences between men and women, but I didn't really talk to you about the differences in men and women. Men are a little bit more transactional in the way they network. Women are a little bit more organic, and they're talking about other things. So women have this tendency, because we want to be nice. I don't know if it's nature versus nurture, and I'm sorry if I'm offending some of the women, but they don't really step out of their comfort zone. And when I spoke about this originally, and I had a big PowerPoint behind me, I had this great photo that my son has asked me never to post again, so I'll tell you about it. All right, and it was the Sadie Hawkins dance at the high school. And his high school girlfriend set up this entire thing with balloons and hearts and just everything that could embarrass a 6-foot football player who's 17 years old. And she basically caught him coming out of class with all these other girls and signs and pom-poms and had a sign ready that said, "Will you be my date for prom?" So I told her, that's very brave. And she almost cried when I said that. It touched her heart so much to hear that she went out of her comfort zone, that this was really not a natural thing for her to do. And the reason she had the support of all the other girls is because they were blown away that somebody would do that. So I asked her why she did it. And she said, well, I started thinking of how a guy would ask a girl, because that's how I need to ask him. And I thought, isn't that brilliant? When we ask somebody for something, be it a business favor or a referral, the time of day, I don't really care what you're asking. You need to put yourself in their position so that you know how it's going to come across. Not really a hard thing to think of. You know, this is what I call a BFO, a blinding flash of the obvious, right? Once you get it, it's like, oh, why haven't I thought of that before? But you think about who you're asking, right? So you want an assignment on this one? Because it seems to me instinctively that men have a little bit larger networks than women, and I don't know if that's true, but what I see is the challenge for both genders to really create meaningful and deep relationships. Remember, I was talking about the depth of the relationship, and I can give you an example. You know the difference between an oak tree and a eucalyptus tree, right? And a palm tree and all of those. Okay, so the oak trees that you see in this neighborhood, and you know, if you go out, some of our streets are actually named for the trees that are lined, right? The oak trees almost never blow over. Maybe they get hit by lightning like we had last night in Jerusalem, but they don't fall over, and that's because they have very, very deep roots that reach down. But the eucalyptus trees, the palm trees, the ones that have the roots that either ball up and grow upwards like a palm tree or skim the dirt and are breaking up the sidewalks in Culver City and other areas, they're down all the time in this weather. So be an oak tree. And your assignment for that one is, I want you to begin with reaching out with a brief but meaningful dialogue that culminates in the ask. So when we talk to each other and we talk about the weather and we talk about all these great things and we work the room and we know everybody and we walk away with a stack of business cards, we haven't really had an ask. So this is harder for some personalities than others. So I want you to approach people like they approach you in a networking organization, and I want you to talk about what do you do. And here's the way it works. Can I pick on you for a moment?
Sure.
Stand up. Ask me what I do.
Hi, what do you do?
I'm in the business networking business, the people business. What do you do?
I work at a radio station.
How long have you been doing that?
This one, about 2 years.
Really?
And I've been radio for about 20.
You've been radio for 20 years.
Yeah,
That must be amazing.
I'm only 32.
You know? Obviously, you're older than I am. So, what just happened here?
We got to know each other.
We got to know each other, right? Conversation.
We learned something about it.
I learned something about you. You know what else happened? Who started? Who asked who? He asked me. Did I tell him what I did, really?
No.
I flipped it.
You asked me a question.
I asked you a question. You can sit down. Let's take you off the hook. Why did I do that? I'm so sorry? To be in control? I do have control issues. Did you notice my husband laughed the loudest? So, yeah.
You have to break the ice because you're not going to know if you don't ask.
Break the ice. Got to know, you don't ask, right? That kind of thing. So here's what really happened. And all of those are very, very true. I am in control. I do want to know about him. I did flip it. The other thing is, I didn't vomit up a bunch of information, right? An opportunity to learn. And now most people are very polite. Had we gone on longer in this display, what would have happened is he, as a normal, nice person, would have said, I've been talking an awful lot. Tell me about you. And now he has to listen. Why? Because he owes me. If I had done it the other way and I was spewing stuff, he might have been measuring the distance between me and the door. Right? So at this point, I can tailor everything it is I want to say about my business for what I just learned about his. And then when he leaves the room and he's done, he's got my card, he can't even hold it because he's going, we're like this, right? So that's your assignment, really, is to find somebody today, before we leave. Of course, you'll all be doing it, so it won't work. But still, find somebody that you're going to talk to and give this a try. And then when you're done, you're going to ask them When can we meet to talk further? Because you didn't learn anything about them and you didn't form a deep relationship, right? Okay. So I have one more for you. I want you to get published. Oh, that's how many people are in the room? Let's call it 30. That's a lot of books, right? How many out of you 30 are going, I don't want to write a book. I'm child without a spine. I can't do it. Don't make me get published. I'm so busy. You don't have to. You don't. You get published every single day in your social media. It's all about VCP, your visibility, getting your name out there, doing a blog article, turning to the person at your table and saying, do you have a blog or something I can participate in? Can I share this image with hashtag I know Cease? That wasn't the hashtag I gave you earlier, so please don't do that. So, right? That's getting published, that visibility. After a while, that visibility becomes credibility. Steve, I know I didn't ask your permission, but I'm going to out you as somebody in this formula. By the time I face-to-face met Steve Little, I have known him so well from everywhere I have seen his name that I felt that I was in the presence of Steve Little. We had a relationship, a crush going on, sorry Dave, that he didn't even know about, right? So if you're getting visible in a good way, right, this isn't Duran Duran's Girls on Film. If you're getting visible in a good way, you're getting credible in it, and what does that lead to? That leads naturally to that profitability. How else can you gain that visibility? You can belong to how many networks? 3 to 4. 3 to 4, right? That helps you get published, by the way, because by the time your name has been around, this is very important. So I started this off with talking about leadership. It's not just about checking in. Has anybody ever seen a positive or inspirational quote that said, this is going to get my business back on track? Just say yes, go with me, make me feel good.
Good job, Dave.
Right? That's going to be the very first thing you publish somewhere. You're going to share that. Because what is it about it that makes you desirable in business? You're inspirational. You're sharing. You know, we have a saying in our organization, givers gain. The more you give, the more you get back. And you know, that means something different to every person when I talk to them. But ultimately, it's about, do you have the heart of a giver? And if you have the heart of a giver, you're really on track to this. So take that heart and just make it a little bit more visible. And if you are somebody who's going to write a book, or you are going to blog, and you are going to do articles, I want to take it out of your overwhelming time, if you don't mind. Here's my tip to you that was very hard for me to learn, and that is don't write during your prime time. If your business is to be out and on the 405 at 7 a.m., God bless you, but that's something that's on your calendar and that's your prime time and you know it's integral to your business, bless you. If you have a 12 noon call every day or once a week, don't say, I wish I was writing at noon because that's lunchtime. That's already your prime time. Look at your calendar, see where the consistent holes are. If you don't know how to time block, I'm happy to talk to you about it and teach you that, so you get the most out of your calendar. By the way, if your calendar isn't your budget, you're not looking at it, right? And I'd love to help you with that. So find your downtime. Find your something that's not prime time. For me, it's between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. And that's when you should put it on your calendar as your writing time. So our purpose to get published is to increase our visibility, our business, and our networking. So that means there's an assignment. You ready for it? It'd be nice if I had it with me. Okay. So, remember I talked about how can I help you? Somebody's going to ask you, well, how can I help you? Take just a second. Think about the topic I just gave you, right? And think of a way to fill that up, because the answer you want to ultimately give in your assignment, and I'd love for you to do this week so that it has a timed end to it, is to say, I would love another resource or a place to get my message out. Do you know somewhere I can speak, I can post? Do you know a way to get on Twitter? I've been meaning to do it, but I've been frightened. Any of those kinds of things, right? How can I help you? Do you know? Can you help me? And get comfortable with that. And that's really all the work I have for you today. I believe I have time for questions, or am I done?
Please ask if anybody has questions.
I'm supposed to ask. Do you have any questions? We've established that I have time.
What'd you do with Metallica?
What I do with Metallica? So my background is I worked for Apple, and I'm an online community builder. And one of the things that we do is webcasts. And we facilitate webcasts and chat and video and different technologies all together. And so you have to work a live room as well as a text-based room to get questions to Metallica. So I'm moderating the event, I'm making sure all the pieces are going, I'm getting, and you come to the table with questions in advance, because Metallica refused to answer what was 75% of the questions, and that's why'd you guys cut your hair? So I had to write questions as well as the producer of this event, and making sure that it happened. And I had to go with Dave to the store, find out there are no more albums, and get a Metallica CD, and find out who they were the night before the event, and learn that this was some time ago. But so that's really what I did with Metallica and Nelson Mandela. And then the Nelson Mandela one I'm really proud of, and nobody ever asked about it, so I'm going to tell you this. It was on the third day after his release from prison. We knew it was happening a little bit before this, and it was going to do this, so we had, but we didn't know what the official date was this week sometime. So we basically had 3 days to pull that together. And I had to get an auditorium, which is a larger chat room. It works in I'm not going to bore you with the details on that, but the problem was I had asked AOL, America Online at that time, for 2 different auditoriums, because we were also facilitating a webcast with Coco, the sign language gorilla. And for some reason, AOL felt that Coco was worthy and Nelson Mandela really wasn't. So that was a very difficult thing to negotiate. So any other questions? Really not? You want to know about the gorilla?
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you and me and I end up monetizing the creation of networks? Like knowing a lot of people and asking you how you could pay each other favors makes a lot of sense to me, but how do you end up turning that into an actual strategy?
What is my monetization or what is the members?
Your organization, like a company for me and I.
Well, it's a membership organization, just like the chamber.
Okay.
So as an executive director, no, I'll be honest with you, that's a franchise, right? So I bought my title, it's very nice. And the more members we have, right, the greater the strength of the organization. So I always say my members are profitable than I am, because you're not going to stay in an organization that isn't working with you. And you might want to work the room a little later and find out what percentage of these people here are working that as their network as well. And then I encourage you not to look at the but other hard contacts. Everything has to